Alright, well, now that I know my impeller works, what I've done is I've taken this piece of MDF. It's about 3/4, actually a little bit bigger than that. And I need to start building the housing and the cabinet for this thing to fit in. So what I've done is I took the MDF and I laid it down here, and I know that one side has to be bigger than the other, you know, so I just moved this around until I found a spot that I thought may work, and as you can see, I've actually moved it a couple times. This is what I ended up with. I spent about 3 hours trying to figure all this out this morning. But anyway, once I figured out where I wanted my center point, I drew this circle here, which is a 1-foot circle, just to represent my impeller. I know that that's where it's gonna go. And if you remember, the back piece on the very back of the impeller, I had that big piece of wood on the back that I had turned to go on the shaft to hold everything nice and steady. Well, I'm going to mortise out for it right here. So I forgot what the exact measurement was on that, but I went a 1/2 inch larger diameter than the actual piece that's going to be fitting in there. Also, I went about a 1/4 inch here, or 3/8, and on my stripping edge, because the way this is going to be built is here, 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 and then right down through here is just going to be the case. Alright, and it's going to be the width of my impeller plus a 1/2 inch. That'll give me a 1/4 inch on each side of the impeller for clearance, because it did have a little bit of wobble in it. Now, this right here is going to be my stripping edge. As the impeller rotates and the air gets slung out and comes through this, what's actually called a volute, as the air gets slung out here, it hits this stripping edge and it gets stripped off the impeller, and that's what creates your pressure over here and the outward thrust. So anyway, this is going to be the stripping edge, and this is going to be my positive pressure side. This is my negative pressure side. Alright, all of this will be built up to the height of my impeller plus a 1/2 inch. Right around this line here is, instead of going around and trying to actually make wood fit this curve going around through here, I'm going to cut blocks and stand them up here. Of course, the blocks will be the same height as the walls. I'm just going to stand them up side by side around through here. And on the treadmill that I took apart, I had a great big piece of really flexible plastic, good strong stuff, and I'll run it from here on the inside of everything all the way around to here. That'll smooth out any imperfections in the curve, and I'll screw it to those blocks. So that's what I'm getting ready to do now. It's taken me a lot longer to figure this out than what I really thought. Basically, what I did over here, I wanted about 5 inches or 6 inches, and this is about 5 inches from the center, from here to here, about 5 inches. And then down this way I went, a little bit smaller, and a little bit smaller, and a little bit smaller, all the way around. Well, Matthias, he had a geometrical figure that he used somehow to come up with the radius for these two marks, wherever the radius was. I think the radius for these two was like up in here somewhere. But anyway, all I did was, I took my trammel, I just took my trammel and I got it set, say, to this contact point here, and then I hold my needle in place to see if it'll touch up here, and it does. If it didn't, if it's too far that way, I can move it back a little bit. You know, if it's too far this way, I can move it that way just a little bit until I hit both marks. I did that here, and then I did it here and here. And you know, that works for me. You know, it's not perfect, but I do have this is gradually getting larger as it goes around the impeller until it gets almost all the way around. It hits the stripping edge and comes off. That's I think that's going to work out just fine. I don't know all the math to really figuring that out very easily, but that's how I figured out the volute. And just remember that all I'm going to do here is I'm going to put blocks of wood in here right next to this line, you know, and there'll be the MDF, there'll be, you know, 3/4 stuff all the way around, and I'll wrap that plastic around here. That'll give the airflow a good smooth surface to flow against, but it'll also take out any, you know, imperfections or whatever in the curve. So without any further ado, I just condensed about 3 hours down into about 5 minutes or 10 minutes maybe, and I'm going to get started cutting this out, and I'll have to do that outside. Shop ain't big enough to cut this big stuff. My circular saw, it's got a 24 tooth blade on it, just for construction type stuff, because this MDF has got some staples in it in little places. I don't want to hit it with my expensive table saw blade, so if I hit it with this one, it just chews through and keeps going. Okay, rough shape for my housing. My motor will be mounted on the back side of this. So anyway, there's that. The way I got this is the filters that I'm using are 20-inch filters. So it's 20 inches from here to here, 20 from here to here. Plus I allowed 1/8 of an inch all the way around for clearance for those things, because sometimes they're not exactly the right size. So anyway, that's how I came up with my dimensions. These other ones here, that's just the cabinet walls. All right, I'm gonna get started on the other piece. All right, I'm just getting ready to cut down these strips, and my impeller is 2 3/8 inches wide, so I'm adding 1/2 inch to give me a 1/4 inch clearance on each side. So that's 2 7/8. So I'm cutting these 2 7/8. I've already got the saw set up, and we're going to get these things cut right quick. I'm going to need about 4 of these. So let's get started cutting these things. Right, well, I need to get this center mark transferred to my bottom part, or actually to the intake side. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drill a hole straight through. I've got them stacked. Check, make sure it went through both. Yep, okay. Alright, so now I've got my center mark on the bottom, which that isn't actually very super important, because what's going to happen is I'm going to end up cutting this out on the scroll saw anyway, or, well, I don't know, my scroll saw may not have that type of capacity. But either way, I'm going to cut it out with a jigsaw or something. But it's just going to be a hole in here, a 6-inch hole for the intake of the impeller. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to set my compass, and I'm going to go ahead and mark that hole. Alright, that's a 6-inch hole. Like I say, the compass is a little bit loose in that hole, but it's still plenty good enough for what I'm going to be doing. Alright, well, getting ready now. I'm going to mark this. Go this way, go this way. And that way I can keep my boards oriented the way they need to be. Now I've got my router, and I'm just going to start getting ready to route out this hole here. And I set my depth already. I'm going to do this in 2 passes. I want to make a 1/2-inch mortise here, and remember that is for the back side of the impeller. I put a big stabilizer on the back, so that's what this is for. But the way I set my depth, I'm going to make a 1/4-inch pass at a time. I've got 2 pieces of 1/4-inch plywood scrap right there, and I just bring it down till it touches and lock it down. Okay. Alright, I'm just going to try to follow this line. Alright, got that mortise. Now I'm just going to make my second pass. I'm going to set my depth, and I'm just going to do the same thing again. I'm going to set my depth with this 1/2-inch piece now. I'll be back shortly. Okay, on the very front of the motor is a piece of plastic that goes around the shaft, and it's actually 2 3/4 inch diameter. So I've got to allow for that also. So I got to set up I got to cut the back side of this to accept that. So 1/2 of 2 3/4 is 1 inch and 7/8. Yep, I think so. Yep, 2 3/4. Okay, so I'll just draw this out. And then I'll just route that out too, which this hole will be routed all the way through. It'll mate up with the other hole, so it'll actually go all the way through. Anyway, I've got my mortise here for the back part of my impeller. I've got my hole here to accept the motor. So I'm about ready to start sticking this thing together. Get this oriented back right. I'm just cutting the walls of the cabinet. Well, I hope I figured all this right. Of course, I'm not building a piano either. Okay, well, got all my pieces are cut. All of them are the same height. They're all basically in their position, and I've just dry fitted them together. This here will be my little stripping edge here. You can kind of maybe see a little better what's going on now. I'm going to glue all this in, and then I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to put screws in and all these pieces. This piece here, when it comes down, it will simply be screwed down to the cabinet so that I can take it off later if I have to for some reason or another. And that way I'll have access to the impeller if something gets broke or whatever. And I have my little piece of plastic here, which will wrap all the way around this area. And I haven't cut it to length yet, but basically this is what it's going to do, just like that. So it's definitely going my way now. I'm going to start getting this stuff glued up, and we'll see where it goes from there. Okay, well, I'm just getting started gluing the parts up, and I'm just using my tight bond. I'm just going to glue all these pieces down. Boy, that MDF just makes a mess. Just going to glue them down. I'm going to do all of those, and then I'll come back and do all of the sides. Being very careful not to interfere with my volute. When the squeeze out happens, you about can't see your lines. So, but that's what I'm doing. Okay, well, I'm finished with the glue up. Got plenty of weight on all the pieces in there, and I ended up having to put this one on the front because the plywood is actually bent. So when I when I screwed it down, it pulled up from the bottom down here. So anyway, I put some wood on there. Now everything's glued up good. Well, all right, I got this. Everything's glued up good now. Now I've got this piece of plastic that I'm going to put on it. Really, really, really flexible, but it does have, a little bit of stiffness to it, so it'll run that curve very well. One side's textured, which, so I'm going to flip it over to the smooth side. I'm going to put the smooth side toward the impeller, and it'll just go in here, just like this. And I'm just going to hot glue it in spots, and I may come back and put a screw or so in these just to hold it if the hot glue looks like it's not going to work. But that's what I'm going to do now. Just going to get started on that. see where I got to be at. There we go. Just going to put a little bit of hot glue. Hold it for just a second. And I'm going to put some down here too. And now I'll hold it for a couple seconds and let it start getting sticky. That way I don't get any vibration out of it. I think that's going to work good. That's holding nicely. Okay, well I'll be back once I get this. I've got my pilot holes for my mounts here. Now I'm just going to glue it down. I've already checked to make sure that everything clears. So, there we go. Alright, let's see here. Okay, center mark. This is the bottom. This line represents the bottom of my mount. I measured up to get the center of the motor shaft. And now I'm just going to screw it down. Okay, this is what we're looking at right here. Boy, it's getting heavy, all that MDF. This is what we're looking at. Pretty good. I got about 3/8 clearance here. Not quite what I was looking for, but I was looking for about 1/4. But that right there should be just fine. Alright, well, I'm going to get ready to mount this front cover on. And I got to let this glue cure up back here. And we should be in good shape to get this old girl running. The hot glue worked really well here. I don't believe I'm going to have to put any screws or anything in there, but we'll see. See a little bit later. Alright. Going to give her a test run, see how she does. Maybe get the cover put on it and just see how that works out. Safety glasses on, of course. There goes. Nothing. Alright. I like that. Okay, let's put this, see how this works. Very carefully. That's what I'm talking about. Good suction, good wind force all the way around. Beautiful. Yes, sir. Alright, I need 5 1/4 for the sides. So, without any further ado, I got my saw set up for 5 1/4, and that's to cut all the sides for my filter box. I'll put cleats here, here, and then down here, and I'll leave this side open. I'm going to put a hinge and a door right there. And anyway, that's going to be the box. The box is about 5 1/4, and I'm going to cut it from these MDF pieces here. And well, I'll have 2 filters and a small air space. Just getting these hinges on here. Okay, the filters that I'm using right now, just for test purposes, I'm using some out of the house, but they're 20 by 20 by 1. But I measured them, and they measured 3/4 inch, 3/4 of an inch tall. Let me just double check. Yes, 3/4 of an inch tall. So what I've done, I'm going to stack them. So I'll use 2 filters stacked on top of each other. And what I've done here is I've made a little story block. So I get all my cleats set the exact same. The story block is 1 3/4 inch. So that should give me a 1/4 inch of play, make it a little bit easier getting them in and out. But I'll just take my story block and I'll set this on top, and I will shoot it in, and but of course I'll be using glue also. But anyway, that's what I'm doing. Just gluing it all up and shooting it together. These are 1 3/4 inch apart now, all the way around. And now I'm just getting ready to screw the bottom, the filter, to the fan. So I'm just going to pre-drill all of them, and just going to pre-drill everything, and then I'll come back and shoot screws in it. Well, here we go. I got my filters. These are just some old filters from our furnace in the house, or from our heat and air in the house. Of course, they're 20 by 20. Just a standard filter, so I can buy them anywhere I want to. These are the HEPA filters, so I don't know if I'll be buying them. They're about $8 or $10 a piece, but anyway, they just slide in here on the cleats just like that, and the door will close, and I'll have to get me a latch or something to hold the door shut. But this is the way I'm going to try to hang it up here. And let me see if I can stand this thing up. Maybe. It's way heavier than what I thought it was going to be. But let's see here. see how she sits and runs. Make sure my wires ain't touching. Let's fire this puppy up. How about that? Let me turn it around so you can see what's going on here. Alright, now I've got another piece of plywood here which I'll be using, and it will mount inside the door also, but I'll have to cut it down, but it'll be mounted in cleats also, where I can slide it right in here, just like the filters, and I'll have a flange here in the middle that I can connect up a dust collector. See if you can see that. Okay, yeah, you can see it. That way I can hook up a dust collector. You know, depending if it's got, you know, the power and all that I'm looking for. Anyway, let's give this thing a shot and see just how she does. Let me get in here so maybe you can see a little bit better. Anyway, okay. Make sure my wires ain't touching again. I'll permanently wire this after I get done with all the testing and stuff. Oh wow, it's pretty quiet. I like that. What sucked them things in, didn't it? But anyway, I'll give you a roundabout of it. I've got a couple of holes up here. Oh, and they're blowing out really nice. Really nice. Motor, of course right now it's kind of sitting sideways. I've got it turned the wrong way, but motor's really nice and quiet. It's running good. I'm going to grab my little test piece here and see how. Got good airflow. Really got good airflow here. Well, so there we are. My Shopmade dust collector. Of course, see how well it actually works in the shop is yet to be seen, but it seems like it's going to do good. It's got really good airflow, a lot of surface area for my filters, and it blows out really well up here. I'll probably end up going back and cutting some more holes on the discharge side. There's a lot of pressure there, so I figure if I make a few more holes that it will it will actually increase airflow on the intake side also. So I'm going to be doing that, you know, and but really all that's left is hanging it and wiring it up. I'm going to wire it up with a switch. I'll just mount a light switch or something on the side, and so I can just turn it on whenever I want to. But other than that, she's done. It's been a really good build. I learned a lot. I've never built an impeller before, but now I have. And anyway, Matthias Wendell is he had this idea, and I took a lot of these ideas from him, but I ended up pretty much building it my way. He's really smart, and he's very inspirational as far as building your own things and all that, but a lot of his math and stuff I don't know. So but this is mine. I started out with a little bit of an understanding of impellers and volutes and things like that because I am a firefighter, and you know, this right here is the same thing as what our water pumps are in our trucks. So anyway, what expense do I have in this? Let's see, I bought a piece of plywood. It cost me about $10. The hinges, they cost about $2. A few screws, a little bit of glue, and really that's about it. Of course, I'm going to have a hose and well, I have to buy a flange somehow, but I'm looking for a 4-inch flange. I'm wanting to use 4-inch, and then whatever hanging hardware I've got. So I've got less than probably $40 in this whole thing, maybe not even 30. But most all of this came from salvage parts. The motor came from an old dryer. The MDF all came from the treadmill that I took apart. Wow, I mean, even the little plastic liner inside around my volute came off of that treadmill. So, made out like a bandit, just like I said. Anyway, I'm going to go get this thing uploaded. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm going to figure out how to hang this thing up. Y'all have a good day.